Hello, everyone. It's Tuesday, April 2nd. So that means it's time again for another edition of Wednesday with Walton and Reis, shown in video form here at thecardinalnation.com and in audio form at the Scoops Sports Network and all your favorite podcast apps. Welcome, Kyle, tech support wizard.
Look at us. We're in the 21st century, living our best lives, Brian. How are you tonight?
I'm fine. Last week I got screwed up and had the wrong view up, and you had to only see the speaker and not the other person who was bored to tears while the other person was talking. Now you get to see us both side by side again.
Yeah. Hey, welcome to the family, everyone.
All right. So since the last time we talked, Kyle had the opportunity to go to St. Louis Cardinals opening day. First of all, I will follow my sword. He wins our bet. We had a little gentleman's bet about attendance at opening day, and it was officially a sellout, although I highly question that. You were closer with your 44,000 guests than my 41,000 guests.
Brian, I was amazed that, and I never put the video up. I took a video. I just took the video at the wrong time. I took a video as the Cardinals fans were booing John Mozeliak. But I went throughout the entire stadium, and it looked completely packed in there. Surprisingly, I thought that would have probably been the best time to take that video because, for obvious reasons. But so yeah, it was completely packed. And it's my understanding from my friends who were at Ballpark Village that even as the game was packed, even as that moment was going on, that Ballpark Village was packed as well. Of course, unfortunately, one of the stories of the weekend became that the Cardinals could not continue that momentum over the weekend. So good day on Thursday, but it's been downhill since, it sounds like, Brian.
Yeah, and let's face it, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, or whatever they call themselves these days, is not a particularly great draw. I mean, hey, it'd be cool to see Mike Trout, future Hall of Famer, if he's not injured. I don't think he's been injured yet this year. They moved him to right field maybe to try to keep him healthy a little longer. But other than that, they're a mediocre team. And so, I can see some of that. On the other hand, 21,000 on a Monday night is, obviously concerning. But no one should be surprised.
Mm-hmm. No, not at all. I think in his first at bat of the season, Mike Trout got hit in the hand, and everyone was like, "Oh, here we go again." But I mean, 21,000 is just and to see the pictures that I think Benjamin Hockman tweeted out, it gets in your brain a little bit. And if they continue to win, obviously, and we'll get into the results, but if they continue to win, I'll be really anxious to see what it looks like in May. Obviously, these attendance numbers reflect more of the off-season discontent from the fans. So and that's been recycled. That's a topic that's been beat to death since last night, since this weekend when Saturday's attendance and Sunday's attendance came down. But for me, the story becomes what happens in May if this team, is 8 games above 500 entering May, homestand in May. So, or maybe even the litmus test will be what happens. And I'm going to say Memorial Day weekend, but I don't know if they're in town on Memorial Day weekend. I really should have done some advanced research on this one, Brian. But, around that time.
Did you think that starting pitching was going to be the star for the first, half of 4 games of the season?
Yeah, I mean, really all 4 games. Even Michaelis' start, we record this on Tuesday. On Monday night, Michaelis' start last night was way better than I thought. And he even worked through some command issues, some velocity issues. But no, I did not. I especially Sonny Gray. I think last week I made some very immature comments about how I just assumed that he'd get blown up in the first inning and then, find his way into the IL after what we saw at the end of spring training and especially dealing with whatever health issue he was. But, it just kind of it all kind of tumbleweeded. It all kind of gained momentum and all the pitchers were feeding off of each other. Even last night, even Monday night, in the game that they lost in extra innings, I don't think the pitching was necessarily bad. Obviously, they lost 5-3, and JoJo Romero couldn't get out of a bad situation with Manfred's man or the ghost runner or the zombie runner or whatever we're calling it. But I didn't think that even then the pitching was particularly bad. So, Brian, what was your impressions of the pitching? Was there something in particular, whether it be a reliever or a starter, that stuck out for you in our first?
No, I just, we just had relatively low expectations of them, and they've exceeded them so far. The bullpen is going to need some time maybe to get its legs underneath it, but the components there look pretty good. The question is the offense, and I think anybody who's worried about Wilson Contreras shouldn't be. He's off to a slow start. So what? He's Wilson Contreras. He'll have a hot week, and he'll be back where he was. Mason Wynn is a little concerning. He had a tough spring, and but he's talking about it, and he's doesn't seem to be down. And the rest of the guys are doing more or less what you expect of them. Obviously, Nolan Gorman had had a chance to play and got some good pitches to hit, which was nice for his confidence. We'll have to see how much, we're going to see him as Marmol figures out how to juggle that lineup.
Yeah, the juggling of the lineup is going to be fascinating. I know that some fans, and I'm on the opposite side of this one, I know some fans are kind of worried, or some untraditional lineups have been put forward with Brendan Donovan hitting third, and last night, on Monday night, Luke Baker hitting third for his first appearance of the year. I've loved the lineups. I think that they're interesting. I think they have the potential to be dynamic. Of course, against the Twins, and the Twins have had a rough start to the year. It was incredibly dynamic. But yeah, look, to get to the concerns of it all, I feel like Wilson Contreras is hitting the ball hard. I hate that he bunted on Monday night. That really upset me, but I'm also, irrationally upset whenever I see a slugger bunt. But at the same time, we saw Victor Scott. Brian, I was thinking about you the other night. I was thinking about you. We saw Victor Scott lay down a perfect bunt and beat it out to first, and the kid is doing everything. But Wilson, I'm not worried about Wilson. I feel like all weekend he was hitting the ball hard. It was just at people. And Mason Wynn, I believe Derek Gould wrote an article in the Post-Dispatch today about they are identifying some of the mechanical adjustments that Mason needs to make in order to get back to what he was doing successfully last season. And that's going to be, it won't come quick, especially with some of the mechanical adjustments he made all off season to get to where he's at now. But I do think it's positive that he's aware of it. The Cardinals are aware of it, and they're working towards it. But, I guess my question to you, Brian, is did you start doing some immediate first or second guessing about maybe not pinch hitting for Nolan Gorman or pitch hitting Nolan Gorman for Mason Wynn in extra innings last night?
Certainly that was a move that I probably would have made. I guess Marmol was showing confidence in Wynn by leaving him in there, I guess. But, it's one at bat in one game of a long season. At the moment, I said, I wouldn't have done it that way, but I wasn't throwing things at the TV.
Yeah, the other thing and hopefully our audience is kind of in the same boat here. I have to remind myself, and I think it's good that we continue to remind ourselves that it is still a transition year. Like, they're going to be competitive, but the long-term health of the organization is just as important as winning one particular game. And I know that sounds terrible, but I wasn't upset, but I thought, man, I really wish I would have gone to Gorman here. But then I started thinking about it and deconstructing it. And really that moment is for Mason Wynn. Not only for that moment last night, but also for the long-term sustainability of his career and also Cardinals sustainability.
Yeah, so he doesn't want to be in a situation where he's looking over his shoulder in any tight situation late in the game. Am I going to be the guy that's pulled? But not putting aside the fact that they don't have a backup shortstop to play in the field when they do take him out, but a different discussion.
Yeah, a discussion that we've had last week, I think, and also maybe proof that they're already hopefully they're learning from that. We'll see where that goes. I don't know, but hopefully they're learning from that. I thought it was really interesting to see everybody kind of contribute, even in the loss, the way that we hoped that they would contribute. Brendan Donovan hitting a home run against a lefty, Lars Nootbaar hitting a home run against a lefty. There was just so many positives to take for me in particular. Again, one of the things I tweeted out, I'm not sure if it's in the controversial tweet section. We'll get into my hot take section later. But one of my big takeaways from the weekend was how great Wilson Contreras' defense at first has been. He's been diving around and running around and flipping his hat.
Throwing off his cap. Yeah.
Yeah. Was there anything like specific, anything exciting that stood out for you, Brian?
Well, he took very seriously this move to first base. He did a lot of work in spring. He did work on the backfields, on the short field, the Ozzie Smith field. And, it's just nice to see a veteran like that not only say he wants to be with a team, but, hey, I'm willing to change my position to do, and do whatever it takes to win. Again, I think Contreras is going to be just fine. It was nice to see Arenado. It was only the first game, but it was nice to see Arenado hit a home run and be recognized by the fans and sort of like, all right, let's put all the offseason stuff behind us. And, if he can contribute anywhere near, his past, that'll be a huge difference maker on the team as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was, I don't know. You don't want to get too caught up in it because it was against the Twins and then the Twins got smoked by the White Sox. But it was just such a great reintroduction to Cardinal baseball in 20.
Yeah. And hey, the Cardinals got smoked by the White Sox 2 out of 3 early last year too. So, we can't disparage the White Sox too much.
Yeah.
So the Memphis Redbirds, now different script, right? We figured the Memphis Redbirds, starting the season with with their very highly touted rotation, McGreevy and Quinn Matthews and they got off to a 1-2 start. didn't really get the good pitching that we expected from them. Well, did you see any of their games? I know you did. What did you think?
So I guess sometimes with Michael McGreevy, again, because I tend to be dismissive of guys that have already made a major league debut, I didn't invest too much into McGreevy's start. I watched it, and I guess my impression was he made more than two bad pitches, but the first inning home run was a long count against Will Benson, who has major league experience, and Jimmy Crooks or Michael McGreevy in their communication, they decided to pound him in late in that at bat. The last three or four pitches were all inside, a couple of breaking pitches, and then he tried to, front door a sinker into Will Benson, and it just got all over the plate, and Benson crushed it. And then the other damage that was done against McGreevy was in the fourth inning. Reis Hines, another highly touted big power bat that has major league experience, hit a 3-run shot on a 1-1 sweeper, and it was the same thing. He threw an outside sweeper to the right-hander Reis Hines, and Reis Hines hammered the baseball. It wasn't an awful pitch, but it was the pitch you would kind of expect in that moment. But other than that, I think Michael McGreevy, he only got 3 swings and misses all game, but it was exactly what Michael McGreevy was in a 4-inning span as they start to continue to build their pitch count.
Yep.
Quinn Matthews was interesting to me because, you'll see the 3 walks, you'll see only 1 K, a couple runs, but you could tell that he was frustrated that he wasn't getting loose. Now, his velocity, everything was fine. I still think we're going to need to see him kind of develop a consistent fourth pitch, whether that's the cutter, getting back to the curve. It was nice to see him throw his curveball a couple times late in that start. But you could tell he just could not get loose. To start every inning, he does this thing where he bends his back backwards and kind of rotates on his axis to try to loosen up. And as the game progressed, every time he'd do it, he'd kind of shake his head and shake his neck. And I don't think I've ever seen him do that. So he was having trouble loosening his core. I think it was a particularly cold, particularly windy day there. Again, that's all excuses, but not exactly a standout performance for Matthews. Graceffo was interesting because I think we learned 2 important lessons about Gordon Graceffo on Sunday. The first one being his curveball is his best pitch. I think it got the most swings and misses. Well, actually, that's a whole different story. When you look at his Savant page, it gets us to the second thing about Gordon Graceffo's start is Baseball Savant cannot differentiate Gordon Graceffo's cutter from his fastball. And also, it kind of messes around with the slider. So it would categorize cutters as sliders sometimes and as fastballs sometimes and not categorize his cutter at all. So it was nice to see his curveball continue with added velocity to have continued effectiveness against both righties and lefties. That was big. And then his fastball cutter it's at a decent spot, but he has work to do with both of those pitches to really regain and to become the pitcher he's capable of. The other thing that was really interesting about Gordon Graceffo's start, and again, this is not to beat up on Jimmy Crooks. I don't know if this was Jimmy Crooks calling the pitches or if it's Gordon Graceffo shaking him off, but most of the damage to Gordon Graceffo was done on consecutive sliders thrown in the same quadrant of the strike zone, which if you're looking at the plate, it's in the bottom left-hand corner of the strike zone. On both of the hard hit balls against him, the home run, the long double that drove in 3 runs with the bases loaded, they were both on back-to-back sliders in the same quadrant of the plate, which would be low and inside on lefties, low and outside on righties. And I thought that was really interesting. I did not like that. And the double was hit by Edwin Rios, again, another player with major league experience. And he threw a cutter, and then he threw 2 sliders, all 3 of which registered as sliders. And Rios, all in the same quadrant, and Rios just went with it. So just some things that I noticed. Otherwise, to me, the highlight of the pitching staff in Memphis was Rodri Munoz, who threw, I believe, 10 cutters.
5 strikeouts in 2 innings, something like that. Yeah,
10 cutters. He threw 15 cutters, 10 of which got swings, 8 of which got swing and misses. His fastball was electric. His slider was good. His command is kind of trash. So if he can just kind of live inside of the strike zone, it'd be wonderful because his stuff is electric, and he made some of those advanced 4A sub MLB type depth bats for the Louisville Bats look pretty silly. So I thought that was worth mentioning as well, Brian,
Yeah.
as I finally complete my rant.
All right, let's move on to the Double-A Springfield Cardinals. They had their media day on Monday, and so they released a preliminary roster. And it is preliminary because they have 29 players active, and of course, they can only have 28. So something else is going to happen between now and opening day. Not surprisingly, Tekoa Roby is going to be the opening day starter. It's good that he's healthy. Unfortunately, Cooper Jerpy's not. So there you go.
Yeah.
Jerpy, the last time Jerpy threw that I saw, or that he was on the schedule, was on the 11th of March, which coincidentally was the same day that Tank Hence threw last, who's on the 60-day injured list for Memphis. Interesting, they promoted Tank Hence while he's injured, but yet Jerpy stays at Springfield. But, it doesn't matter until he's healthy anyway. And then I think the interesting thing about the Springfield rotation, of course, is 3 left-handers promoted up from Peoria. And, of course, I'm talking about Eshawn Henderson, talking about Pete Hansen, and Bryson Motts. What's your take on this rotation in Springfield?
I can't wait to see what the rotation exactly is. I know that the good news is from your website and seeing how they stretch people out is we have a pretty good idea. But my take is
by the way, pardon me for interrupting you. Edwin Nunez has been throwing multiple innings this spring. I mean, are they going to try it again? Last year they stayed with it till August, and it failed miserably. But maybe they'll give that another try. Austin Love's there, a favorite of yours, but he hasn't thrown more than an inning, and he hasn't really thrown in 2 years. So chances are he's going to be a bullpen guy. Who else do you see as a candidate for that rotation?
Yeah, before Jerpy went on the IL, which candidly broke my heart into a million pieces, and also has been impossible to get into any information on, like at all, which has me spooked. It has me worried. I'm just going to throw it out there. Normally by now you kind of hear a little something here and there from people or whatever, and it's been radio silence on every angle that that's anyway. Hopefully, I'm throwing that out there, hoping that somebody listens to this is like, hey, Kyle, this is what it is. But
and by the way, in camp he wasn't on the no throw list. He wasn't, at least, and again, that's only worth what's on the paper. But some of the guys actually disappeared from throwing, and they end up opening like a Chinwei Lin, at Peoria. He was actually shown on the non-pitching list. Same with Brian Holiday, who is probably going to be on Palm Beach when we see that roster. But so those guys are guys that it was obvious that they were hurt enough. The Cardinals will let everybody know about it. Jerpy, I wasn't surprised because I wasn't seeing him throwing, but I was surprised because like you said, we didn't have any inkling of anything that was going on. So.
Yeah, and up until the last minute, it sounded like everything was smooth sailing. So that was a moment where I had legitimate heartbreak. The pitching staff aside, I'm anxious to see first and foremost if Pete Hansen has any added velocity. That's going to be a big thing for him. There's been some rumors that he's added a couple miles per hour across the board. If he can do that, then that increases his ability, obviously, to be a major league contributor in some capacity. It's going to be the same thing with Bryson Motts. I hate to keep going back to the velocity thing, but these are all important things. I'm really anxious to see.
And these are guys, pardon me, but these are two guys that have been in the system now since 2022. And, they've had a moderate amount of success in A, but this is really going to be the time for Motts and Hansen either to step up or fall back, in my opinion.
Yeah, you and I, we've talked about how we wanted to see them push Hence and push Roby all offseason. They were healthy, of course, and luckily Roby is, but we wanted to see them get that challenge at AAA. And that kind of backfills, right? But we want to see Hansen and we want to see Motts finally get that next level challenge. Both have had varying levels of success at high A. So it's nice to see them. And of course, logistically, it makes sense to finally get a AA test.
And they've been durable. Both of them made 24 starts last year, at Peoria. So, they've been able to take the ball every fifth day. It's just the results have not been as consistently good as you'd like to see.
Yeah. So that's going to be fun right next to Eshawn Henderson and Roby. And so I'm really anxious to see Eshawn Henderson. He's worked a cutter into his repertoire, and I'm anxious to see how it plays. Sometimes he drops his arm to throw some pitches, and that's something we're going to be keeping an eye out on. And I just really like that pitching staff. The bullpen is fascinating to me, not only because of Austin Love, but I'm really intrigued in the bullpen.
Yeah, and let's talk about it. I mean, 2 players skipped Peoria entirely, and one of them you're going to talk about in just a minute, the guy who throws a pretty good changeup, I understand, and then J.J. Weatherholt. And nobody's surprised that JJ Weatherholt, skipped Palm Beach. They could have, skipped Peoria. They could have moved him up late last year, but really Weatherholt didn't get hot until the very end of the season. On the other hand, the other guy that made the two-step jump, Luis Gastelum, was sensational at Palm Beach all year long. And if you and I had been together last year, we would have been saying every week in the second half, why isn't this guy in Peoria? Why isn't this guy in Peoria? Now, he helped Palm Beach win a championship, but I think this jump is overdue for him, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He's going to be a lot of times when you're talking about minor league relievers, you don't invest as much energy and attention into them. Like you can watch them, but you kind of, when you're watching so many games at once, you don't need to invest so much into, I love the guy, but Leonardo Tavares, big stuff, but you don't need to watch every pitch he throws. That will not be the case with Gastelum. I will watch every pitch he throws with incredible intent and interest, just to see how it goes. But from him to Austin Love to again Tavares, who's got some interesting stuff. Jack Ralston, who's been in the organization now since 2019, who throws
one of the few people left who played for State College.
Yeah, holy cow! I didn't even think about that. You're right.
Yeah,
and yeah, wow, that's crazy. See now my brain is starting to twist. It's starting to lose itself. I'm starting to go down that hole. But yeah, I'm just really anxious to see. Like that's a really good bullpen with a lot of really intriguing arms, and that's going to help that team a great deal to be successful.
In fact, Springfield in the recent years has not had a good bullpen, or at least they've struggled a lot. And the Texas League is a tough place for pitchers. There's no doubt about it. But if Springfield does have a better bullpen, that will certainly be a difference maker this year compared to the past. Now, the offense, other than a few big names, doesn't necessarily excite. But if they can keep the runs off the board, they have enough. They should have enough offense to win a good share of games.
Yeah, hopefully, if all things go well, you'll have Weatherholt, Chase Davis. I think Nathan Church is hurt too. I think they put him on the IL.
But he is with the team at least. So that's I don't think it doesn't look like a serious injury as far as I know.
Yeah, and then Leo Bernal. It'll be those three. That's where our attentions will be more. No disrespect to RJ Yeager or Jeremy Rivas or Darlin Moquete or Noah Medlinger, but like that's where our interests are going to be. That's a really important 1-2-3 combo of prospects in Bernal, in Davis, and Weatherholt at what it can be a pretty, like you mentioned, a very good hitter league. So it's nice that with all the pitching that they have, that there is still intrigue with a couple of the Cardinals' high-end hitting prospects.
And let's now talk about, we have a little bit of time yet. We can talk about the opening roster for the Peoria Chiefs, the high A team that was disclosed on Tuesday. They're the media day on Monday. Of course, their opening day is on Friday, as are the other short season teams. Good news and bad news. The bad news is their top-ranked pitcher and their top-ranked hitter, at least according to my rankings, are both starting the season on the injured list. And we knew Juan Bencho injured his hand in spring camp. He's working, but he's not ready. And then Zenwei Lin, the tall Taiwanese pitcher, really was hurt like the last half of spring. So he's only on the 7-day IL. Nobody's on the 60-day IL on Peoria. So that's a positive. But they also have some other good arms. Certainly Zach Showalter came up, and it looks like they're going to be starting him, I think. Gerardo Salas, who did a nice job at Palm Beach, Darlin Saladin. So they've got some interesting players on the Peoria staff as well.
Yeah, like even I'm anxious to see it. Like there's two names in particular I look at that roster, and I'm anxious to see how they use them. Because I've been under the impression that Tyler Brand, Cade Winquist, Zach Showalter, Gerardo Salas, and Darlin Saladin are going to be starters. So I'm really anxious to see how Jose Davila is used because, he's just such an interesting pitcher. I'm hoping he gets some extended looks. And Inohan Paniagua, both guys who have basically just been starters. Paniagua's in his third year now in some capacity at high A. I'm really anxious to see specifically how those guys are deployed out of the bullpen. But there's some really interesting names on there, Brian. What are your takeaways?
Yeah, I think you made a good point. Winquist is a guy that has great potential, but just hasn't been healthy and active enough to see it. I hope they frankly give some of these newer guys a chance to start. Nothing against the Paniaguas and the Davilas, but they've had a lot of chances and they're getting on in their prospect years. I always look at the guys who are throwing multiple innings in spring camp as a clue as to who might be, but there were more guys pitching multiple innings than there's room in this rotation. So I don't know if they're going to do tandems or, some of these guys will obviously be in long relief, but they also, at least in the past, and we don't know the new regime, in the past, they've not been afraid to change up the rotation if they need to, if somebody's doing particularly well in long relief or somebody's struggling as a starter. And the one thing we do know is the upper Midwest weather in the month of April can be a challenge for some. And, that could be another issue, not an excuse, but just a factor. If some of these guys haven't pitched in cold weather before, they're going to have to learn how.
Yeah, I remember one time a couple of years ago, it would have been Johan Oviedo got the opening day start for Peoria. I believe it was his first year in Peoria. And he threw 32 pitches in that first inning before they pulled him, and like 24 of them were balls or something like that. It was crazy. And it was just, I remember hearing him talk about how he was just so cold. A lot of time those Caribbean players, they don't know what it's like to pitch in 32-degree weather with flurries on opening day. And I believe that's what Johan Oviedo went through. And it's not an easy task at all, to your point, Brian.
No. So Friday will be a big night. Instead of one minor league game with Memphis, there'll be 4 to watch. And so that should be exciting. And we'll certainly share the the Palm Beach roster when we see it. And then, of course, the remaining 60 guys that have been in camp that didn't make one of these 4 full season squads will continue in extended spring training. And so they kind of go back into spring training mode, basically, which is workouts and 1:00 games on the backfields to get themselves prepared for the Florida Complex League rookie ball, which will start. I haven't seen the starting date this year, but typically it's somewhere around Memorial Day. But also those guys in extended spring training are working to try to get a spot when something opens in Palm Beach. And there's always a domino effect. That could be an opening in Peoria that somebody goes up from Palm Beach and then somebody from the extended spring training gets a chance. So while those guys are far away from the action on the backfields in extended spring training, Palm Beach is literally just across the complex. And it's that step used to be 3 levels, until COVID and the change to the minor leagues. Now it's 1 step. And it's a lot of guys get that shot. Some of them can stay, a lot of them don't, but they get the opportunity to go back and forth. So this year, when you can see Palm Beach on TV for the first time, Kyle,
yes,
you will get to see a lot more of these players. Tell me about this great announcement and how you helped make it happen.
Well, Brian, I found out many, many years ago when I was a child with my parents that if I just whined enough, I'd get whatever I wanted.
There you go.
And it got me an Xbox when I was 13, and it now has gotten me minor league baseball via Palm Beach at Roger Dean Stadium for the first time ever. They've had a live feed that you have to have special access to that some people do. That it's the camera that's directly in center, so you can only see what the hitters are doing. But now it's the stationary. Thank you, Brian. But now they're doing the whole the whole deal. And all I've had to do was whine about this for the last 10 years, and they are doing it. But no, kind of a fun little story there. I guess it was Sunday. I was just curious, and I wanted to see how many of the Palm Beach games were going to be on MILB TV. So I was going through MILB TV's schedule, and all of a sudden, I was ignoring let me start over. I had the Palm Beach schedule up, and I was going through day by day on the MILB TV schedule. And all of a sudden, Palm Beach, I accidentally clicked on a game where Palm Beach was supposed to be home, and there they were in the catalog. And I thought, oh, wait, they just didn't update this. And I felt like a jerk because I was already giving Daytona a bunch of love and Fort Myer a bunch of love and all the places that have Dunedin, all of those places that have MI, and I was giving them love, and I thought, oh, wait, this has got to be a mistake. I messed up. And then the next day on Facebook and on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it these days, the official accounts were like, it's official. All of the Palm Beach games at Roger Dean Stadium are going to be live streamed. And there was like a moment of serenity, Brian. A cool wave washed over me, and I felt like I had just won the lottery, even though it means I will be dedicating even more time that I don't have to this hobby of ours. So, yeah, it's exciting. Are you excited about it?
Yeah, yes, I am. And I want to tell people, hopefully everybody knows this already, but you can subscribe to MILB.TV for $29.95 for the entire season. See all these minor league games. Or if you're out of market, if you're not in the FanDuel Sports Midwest market area. I did the same thing Palm Beach did, by the way. When Palm Beach made their announcement about this, they had Bally Sports in it instead of FanDuel. They need to update that. But anyway, if you're in the FanDuel Sports Midwest market, then you have to subscribe to MILB TV. If you're outside of that market, it comes with MLB TV. The minor league games are part of the MLB TV package. So if you spent the $149.95 to get those out of market games, you have all those minor league games, and you may not even know it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you love baseball as much as we do, Brian, when the Cardinals have an off day on Thursday, the best thing you can do is, you're sitting around, you're going to watch television anyways. Well, might as well put Palm Beach on, might as well put Peoria on, might as well see what Jimmy Crooks is doing. So it's an awesome tool to have. It's worth every penny, regardless of what your options are.
And we're going to see a lot of very young and very interesting players we haven't seen before on the Palm Beach roster. So it's going to be, not that we're tired of these other guys, but we've had the chance to see Weatherholt a little bit. We've had the chance to see some of these other guys. We're not going to, some of the guys on Palm Beach will be very new to us, so that should be fun.
Yeah.
I think with that, we will close this week's edition of Wednesday with Walton and Reis. Kyle, thank you for your comments and insight as always.
Thank you, Brian. It was a pleasure. I love it. Can't wait to talk to you next week.
Yeah, we'll have a whole bunch of games and a whole bunch of teams to talk about. When we focus a little bit on pitching this time, maybe next week we'll come around and talk about some of the hitting as well. But there's a lot to be excited about in the minor league system, and I hope you guys are as excited as we are about it. Obviously, we're here every week, and that's going to be our primary focus all year long. So thanks again for listening. Make sure you subscribe to the Cardinal Nation. Take a look at our prospect guide. I'm shipping one to France tomorrow, so we're going international.
Yes, how cool. Congratulations.
Yeah, what a deal. So with that, we'll close this edition and see you on April 9th. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.